Hey, 7.2. Here we go. ArrayList, yet another way to manage a lot of things. Not just a couple of things. We want to manage a lot of things. So there's more brackets, more things, more syntax, but there are some significant advantages to doing array lists. But before we get there, let's look back just a little bit on arrays and objects. So very quickly, you might have been able to put this together, but just so that you've seen it, I want to show you this program. So I have a student object which we've seen before. Here are the variables that make up a student: a name, an ID number, and then a array of ACT scores. So this is kind of, looking into the future of how you manage a student object. Is you are going to have a student object with arrays as their data. So that student has arrays of all kinds of things. So an array could be an array of their classes, for instance, but we'll get to that. Here's the default constructor with only one spot for an array, for an ACT score. And then the other constructor has some conditionals in there based on the number of ACT scores that are put in there. And so on. So I'll let you look at that. There's a method, genID, that generates their ID, which we've seen before, but take a look at that for a minute. Pause the video if you need to recall how that works. A couple of mutators and some other things. And then a way to set the ACT array based on their score and what position in the array it should go to, and some accessors down below, get num ACT, so on and so forth. So this is where we're headed, something we'll get to. And then my main method, so you know how to make an array. You have 5 spots for ints, you have 32 spots for some strings, where it's type and then name, and the same thing is going to happen when you make an array of objects. But here's the bad news about arrays is you have to know how many students or how many things are going to be in that array. That's why I need to ask that. But when I make an array of objects, it works exactly the same way. What type of thing? What's the name? This is the array symbol. And then the new student, and then how big you want it to be. And then as I'm going through there, I'm asking them name and then ID number, and then a number of ACT scores, because down and below I will get in their ACT scores once I know how many there are. But here is putting in new student objects into my student array. So this is how we will manage objects or a lot of objects, is with an array. Or, as we're going to see today, a better way might be using an array list, because with an array list, as you know, because you've watched those videos on my AP, you should have watched those videos on my AP about how to manage with an array list. You do not need to know how many things are going to be present. You can just keep adding and subtracting or removing as you go. So let's take a look at that. So here, that's the array of objects. Here is the new part. You can create what's called an array list. And here is a quick intro to array lists. I know, more brackets, but that is an array list of integers, okay? And you have to put the object equivalent of int to use integers. And here's strings. And in order to put items in there, you use the add method, and that will automatically put that object at the end of the array. So you can see I add 5, add 77, so I've just added 2 integers. So 5 is the element at position 0. 77 is the element, the integer element, at position 1. You can also use the add method to say I want to add something at the beginning. 178, again, this might be some review. So I can add strings to my word list array. So it's a little bit different. Remember, with an array, you use the assignment operator to put it at a position. But with the array list, you have to use methods to do it. So it's something to get used to and to keep separate arrays versus array lists. So there are a bunch of examples that you should be slightly familiar with. And then to actually access items on a list versus an array, you have to say get. You have to call a method to do anything. So there it is. Now, you might be noticing a shortened println statement. I'll get to that in a minute. But just like an array, you can use a for each loop to make your life a lot easier. So you can see that example there, and so on. So that is your array list intro. All methods all the time with array lists, and just keep straight how you declare an array list. So something we'll get into, especially in this particular assignment, is you can have methods inside of your main method. You just need to make them static. So they're like internal methods. And so I've written these 3 down here just to show you a shorthand way. So maybe you're tired of doing system.out.print and println all the time. You can just start using those, just write them below your end of your main method, and they're called static methods that you can use within the main class to make your life a little easier. So there's your array list intro. Here is what your program should do when you're done. It looks like this. I'm going to run it, and I've declared an array list of words, and I'm just going to start typing in words and so on. And as soon as I type in quit, it'll stop putting in my things, and then all sorts of things happen. It prints out my array list. Okay, it had added a few items like water and food in there. I put a string in the middle. I removed some things. You can't see it here, super easy, but you can. It should find the max and the longest string using methods that have been started down below. So you can see right here, like get max was a static method that I put down below, and you just need to know how to call it, and then you needed to actually write and complete the longest string method. So again, good luck. Take a look at that. I will, if you get stuck, take a look at the check your work video, but try to get as much done as you can before doing that. Let me know if I can help.